Due to the nature of this story, I wish to remain completely anonymous, and I will not be answering any revealing questions. A few weeks ago, I stumbled upon an old PlayStation 2 at a yard sale in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. I had ended up there after taking an alternative route home that weekend due to traffic, a detour that led me down winding streets I hadn't driven on before. The sale was run by an elderly woman, her face worn by time, who told me she was moving after her husband's recent passing. As we spoke, she casually mentioned that the PlayStation had belonged to her son, who had gone missing back in 2008. She didn't offer much more than that, but something in her eyes, distant and clouded with sorrow, made me wonder if there was more to the story. She said her son was never found, and after that, she didn't say much more of anything. Anyway, after another few minutes of scanning, I bought the PlayStation and took it home, eager to relive some old gaming nostalgia. I began my trip down memory lane by cleaning the system and inspecting the previous owner's game case and memory card contents. But as I continued, something felt off. The memory cards were all full, with strange, incomplete save files, as if the data had been corrupted. One file in particular caught my eye. It was labeled Finding Mom, and though it looked like a standard game save, I felt a strange pull to open it. When I selected it, instead of loading game data, an application for the game Mercenaries popped up. There wasn't a disk in the system. I instantly gathered that it wasn't the typical Mercenaries game I remembered. The graphics were distorted, and the characters in the game looked wrong, like twisted versions of people I should know. The map was eerily familiar, but it wasn't quite my neighborhood. As I explored the game, the unsettling confirmation hit me. I wasn't just playing a game. As I followed the game's path, things got creepier. I noticed the neighborhood in the game was too similar to mine, and with goosebumps, I felt compelled to try and find my house. The streets were laid out just like the ones I grew up on, and after a few turns, I found myself approaching a house that looked far too much like my own. The crooked fence, the overgrown bushes, it was uncanny. As I walked up to the door in the game, the screen flickered, and a new prompt appeared. A note materialized, scrawled with what looked like rushed handwriting. Go to the old tree by the park. You'll find what you seek. It didn't make sense, but it felt important. My heart raced as I realized something was hidden just beyond the next turn in this warped version of my own world. I followed the game's instructions, going toward the closest park I know of near my house, my pulse quickening with each step. The old oak tree by the park appeared ahead. It looked almost exactly like the one in real life, only darker and more foreboding. As I approached the base of the tree in the game, the screen flickered again, and this time, something new appeared. An old, weathered photograph pinned to the trunk of the tree. I squinted at the image, my heart racing. The picture wasn't part of the game at all. The picture wasn't a part of the game at all. It was a real-life photograph. The man in the picture was someone I recognized. Someone I've seen before. I stood frozen, staring at the photo, my mind racing to make sense of what was happening. But before I could process it, the game abruptly ended. The screen flashed black, and then the PlayStation shut down, restarting itself. I tried again, my hands trembling as I powered the system back on. This time, I quickly navigated to the same file, eager to see if there was more. The same sequence played out. I walked through the distorted neighborhood, found my house, followed the path to the tree, and once again, the photo of the man appeared. But no matter how many times I tried, no matter how many times I loaded the game, it always ended at that same tree with the same photo. And the system would restart itself, There was no continuation, no explanation, just the same eerie loop that led me nowhere. But now, I found myself questioning something deeper. Who was the man in the photo? And why did his face look so familiar? Could he be her son? I couldn't shake the feeling that I knew him, but from where? The more I stared at the picture, the more unsettling it became, and the more I realized I had no idea how or why his face was lodged in my memory. Something about it felt wrong, like I was being drawn into a memory I couldn't quite access. And it was driving me to the edge of madness. I left the PlayStation sitting on the desk while I showered and ate dinner. The memory of that strange photograph and the endless loop weighing heavily on my mind. I couldn't bring myself to play it again. Not tonight. It felt like the game was toying with me, pulling me deeper into something I didn't understand. I packed everything back up into the box. The controllers, memory cards, games, and the PlayStation itself, trying to shove the creeping unease down. I had to step away from it for a while. I figured maybe I could find answers later when I wasn't so consumed by the weirdness of it all. It was Monday tomorrow, and with work in the morning, I wouldn't have time to think about it until Thursday at the earliest. I resolved that I'd go back to the woman's house later in the week, after work had settled down. Maybe she knew more, or perhaps there was something I missed in our brief conversation. I needed to ask her about the photograph about her son, and about the connection between the game and her life. There had to be an explanation for all this, a way to tie it all together. I left the box on the floor, the system quiet for now, and tried to get some sleep. But the thought of that photo kept gnawing at me. I knew I wouldn't be able to rest until I had answers. Thursday felt like an eternity away, but it was the only time I'd have to return and dig deeper into the mystery I had unwittingly uncovered. It was Wednesday morning now, and the thought of the game, the photo, and the strange connection was still in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake it, especially in the quiet moments of my day. I had tried to ignore it, to move on, but the image of that man's face haunted me like a ghost I couldn't outrun. To try and clear my mind, I figured I'd stop at my favorite bagel shop on the way to work. I could grab a sandwich and some tea, maybe take a deep breath and ground myself in something normal for a change. As I walked into the shop, the usual warm, welcoming smell of freshly baked bagels filled the air. But something caught my eye. Behind the counter, I saw a man who looked just like the person in the photograph from the game. My heart skipped a beat. It was him. There was no mistaking it. I froze in place for a moment, unable to move, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My mind raced. How could this be? After a long, tense second, I managed to gather myself enough to approach him. I walked up to him, my voice shaky as I introduced myself, asking if he had a moment to talk in private. My legs trembled slightly, and I hoped he wouldn't notice how rattled I was. The man's expression shifted in an instant when I began telling him about the PlayStation, the photograph, and the strange connection I felt to him. His eyes widened, disbelief flooding his features, and then he grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to send a shock of panic through my body. He looked me dead in the eyes and, with a voice sharp and urgent, demanded, "I need to see it now." His tone was so intense that I couldn't respond for a moment. It was as if something deep inside him had snapped. His eyes locked on mine, desperate, frantic. I was paralyzed, unsure of what to do. Without another word, he yanked me toward the door. I didn't know what else to do, so I let him drag me outside. I barely had time to process the events as he hurriedly climbed into the passenger seat of my car. His urgency had me on edge as I drove back to my place, unsure if I was making a dangerous mistake. But there was no turning back now. When we arrived, I took him inside, trying to steady myself, even though my pulse was still racing. I led him to my desk, presented him with the box, and plugged the PlayStation back in, feeling the weight of the moment hang in the air. I showed him the save file labeled Finding Mom, and he immediately froze, staring at the screen. He played through the game in complete silence. The moments passed slowly, his face hardening as the game played out. When we reached the part with the photograph at the tree, his breath hitched, and I could see the recognition in his now burning red eyes. His hands trembled as he turned toward me, his voice barely audible. "Where did you get this?" I told him about the yard sale and the woman who sold me the PlayStation. His face drained of color as he leaned back, his eyes locked onto the screen. "That's the house I grew up in," he whispered, his voice tight. "I still own it, but it's been condemned for 17 years. He trailed off, his words hanging in the air, and he fell silent. The intensity in his gaze deepened as if something about the house, the game, or both had unlocked something in him. "My mother was kidnapped by my father when I was 7. I lost this when I was taken into foster care. Another 30 seconds passed, which felt like hours. And then, without another word, he rushed to pack everything back into the box. His movements were hurried, frantic, as he slammed the controllers, memory cards, and games back into the cardboard. He didn't look at me, he didn't give me another chance to speak. As quickly as he came, he was gone, the door slamming behind him as he left with the PlayStation. The bagel shop was closed the next day, and empty by the day after, with leasing available signs posted by the end of the week. He never gave me his name. He never told me where he was going. I had no idea where to find him or if I'll ever hear from him again. I've since visited the house, and though it's not boarded up and broken down, it's more desolate than I remember that day. I'm left with more questions than answers, and no idea of what just happened. If anyone has any idea what this could mean, beyond the obvious scary movie answers or what I should do next, I'm all ears. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. A quick shout out to my patrons, Old Penguin, Rinku Star, Melissa Perez, Icy Narrates, Seven Cities Journalist, Cupcake Hips, Eric Cifuentes, Alonso, Austin My Love, Ellie Hutmeyer, Jesse Hartley, Lawrence Wallen, Mr. Sankofa, and William Hartley. I always try to link a different charity in the description, so go ahead and check that out. I'm also going to start having more things on my Patreon soon, so keep your eyes peeled. And as always, I'd love to know how I can be praying for you, so go ahead and drop a comment and let me know how I can do that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video.